We had a little talk a few weeks ago, and I asked you if you would be so kind to have a podcast episode with me, and you said very fast, actually, you said yes. And yeah, I'm happy to have you here today. And what I normally do is I give you the opportunity to present yourself because I tend to be a little bit too flashy, I guess. And then yeah, I would like to have a walkthrough through your path and your background. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think yeah, later on I will give a little insight in how we came together actually. You weren't as aware as I am, but later more to this one. So welcome to today's episode.
Well, thank you very much for the invite. I'm very happy to be here. Um, Sharing is caring. So if I can share any insight on my journey, I'm always happy to do it.
Yeah, I'm always interested in technical founders who were able to survive for a longer period of time. Because as we know, the startup business is always very hard, and there's a lot of competition outside. But especially the work with the customers makes it yeah, very challenging. And as we are working in the very hot topic of AI robotics, camera vision systems, because I'm working for AI guided camera vision system as well. You guys are doing a little bit different things, but yeah, maybe you can give us a little intro about Scortex. And we are not spending too much time on the companies because this is even though this is a robotic podcast, a technical podcast, we tend to concentrate on the people behind the actual products, behind the actual technology. But I would be interested in giving us a few insights in what you guys doing.
Sure. So Scortex is a company I started close to 9 years ago.
Mhm.
And its mission is to help manufacturers make better use of their resources. And to do that, we focused on help them solve their toughest quality issues. Concretely, the main product that we have today, which is called Spark, allows them to automate visual inspection. So automate a tedious task of looking for defects on the product in line in real time. And we do that through our AI software that is able to learn to recognize any anomalies on the product. Um, and the automation is the first step, but it's kind of the most interesting one, because we think that the real value is then on the insights that there is after you've automated a task and start to have real-time and exhaustive data on your production and on the quality issues of your production. And this is data that we want to be able to give access easily to the quality and the production teams within manufacturing plants so they can work on root cause analysis, they can solve their most important quality issues and hopefully produce only good products. So use less material, less energy, and making sure, yeah, it's an efficient production. And here, fortunately, the sustainable goals and the financial goals are quite aligned when you start reducing your cost of quality.
What I really enjoyed the last time we spoke to each other was the fact that we shared so many similar stories, right? So that means it's we can't be the only ones. Very often you ask yourself when you work with customers, so why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult? Why is it so challenging? Especially working with bigger companies, when you're in a partnership with the corporate and startup. Um, Before we come back to our mutual experiences in the industry, because I think some insights are very funny and entertaining. I think we had a lot of fun last time we spoke to each other, but maybe we can go back a few steps. And what I always trying to do is trying to get an understanding how you come actually in contact with what you do today. Because sometimes from the starting point, there's a long way, and sometimes it's a very straight path. Sometimes it's a very interesting and adventurous path that leads you to what you're doing today. So if you would be willing to take me on the time travels to not only 9 years ago when you founded Scortex, but maybe a bit earlier.
Sure. Let's go back to 30 years ago then. I always wanted to build robots. I'm obsessed with machines. I like from tractors to cars to factories. It's been always an obsession. And since I was a very little kid, I used to build machines and take them apart in my bedroom. I apart my parents' washing machine. They were not really happy about it, but I
Mm.
learned a lot in taking apart things. And I studied physics, especially applied to metrology and sensors, so the science of sensing the world and extracting data from the world. And got really interested in machine learning at the end of my studies, and especially as I were diving deeper into what were the best machine learning algorithm at that time, I started to see more and more papers coming out of labs talking about deep learning. So that was 10 plus years ago when the previous wave of AI hype started to take off. And at that time, it was mainly focused on computer vision, and we started to have some really interesting application and decent performance for industrial application. So just out of uni, I saw the opportunity of combining two things that really interested me, the industrial world and deep learning, where I started building some sort of expertise into, okay, how can you actually start leveraging deep neural networks, CNNs, to make sense of images, extract valuable insights, and starting actually building a product out of this. And
I have a question
we
here.
actually,
Sorry for interrupting,
sure.
but um, because it was how can I make a product out of it, right? Because I speak a lot of times with people that are very deep rooted in academia. It's interesting to see that some people just stick with it because
Mhm.
they like the environment of yeah. Being in the university and having this kind of it's your own bubble you are in, right? But
Yeah,
then every now and then and sometimes you have a spin-off at the university and then a company comes out of it. But you said seems like a natural force coming out of you. This is the reason why I'm asking, what kind of product can I do with that? Because very often I see this a lot with tech founders that they are so interested in the topic of the product versus in the very end the product actually needs a user because otherwise
yeah.
it would be a little bit of you it would not entirely be useless but yeah so I'm really keen to understand how that came together.
Sure. Yeah, we did exactly what startup playbook tell you not to do. We started with the solution. We had the technology, we had some sort of product, but not really. One really important force that is outside of just the tech thing is that I didn't really want to go work for another company. I really wanted to. I was bold enough to think that I could create a group of people, find a bunch of money, and work on my own ideas. And I was fortunate for that to happen. And what was really important to me is I wanted to choose the people I want to work with and work on something that I'm interested in. And a startup and VC funding is a one way to do that. Um, so that was an important force. And on the other side, from a tech perspective, we kind of were working on the technology and trying to mature it, trying to understand it. It was really the beginning of deep learning as we know it today. There were a lot less libraries. It was more like the code was more primitive, etc. So there was some real R&D behind it. And on the other side, we explored a lot of sectors. We were interested and drawn to industrial space in general, but we've talked to the agricultural space, went into looking, okay, can we inspect fields and optimize pesticide spread on fields? But the European market was tough on that market. We looked at windmill inspection. Can we put our system on a drone to do inspection? 10 years ago, the drone industry was a lot less mature, and we were talking to
Mm,
other startups that were also struggling. So, like a startup and with a startup, little chance of success. We looked into road and highway inspection, but also there's a lot of the incentive, the financial incentive, and the business case is not very strong. They already have some system, but they don't really want to invest more. And then one day, I started talking to a automotive supplier who invited us to his factory, and we entered and we saw that this factory was running 24/7 and that you had operators inspecting plastic part one by one, takes several seconds. And that was the only job that they were doing, inspecting parts one by one. Every single product that was out of the production line needed to be inspected. This is going around the clock. And that specific day, there was actually quality issues all night, and all the parts that were being produced had the same defects. And the operators, the inspectors were doing the job, they were putting them on the side. But
Mm,
no quality alert was raised because at night there are no supervisors, so they don't really change anything. So they kept producing with the same defects. And those were plastic paint parts. And when you ask, what are you going to do with this? We're going to throw them away and they're not recyclable. So you just start seeing that this factory's average scrap rate is about 20%. So yeah, 1 in 4 products almost in this factory is thrown away just after being produced. So you have people inspecting. It's a non-value-added activity, extremely boring. Nobody wants to do that. Humans are not very good at doing very repetitive tasks for a long time, so you don't have the same level of attention. And then when I asked about why isn't there any supervision stopping early on when you have the same defects, like at night there's no one, and then during the day, actually, if there is someone that comes through the line and sees an issue, they will raise it, but they don't really have data. At that time, they really had very little data. They had a spreadsheet that they were uploading once a week to SAP, but very limited visibility in their scrap rate, their top defects, etc. So kind of started seeing what would be a potential master plan for solving this kind of issue, because that was like single event, but I could see afterwards that that was in thousands of factories in France and in tens of thousands of factories across Europe. So there was a real potential of, okay, solving the cost of quality issues, focusing on automating a very difficult task, annoying task, but it is absolutely needed and required. And especially the technology here was a good match because you need to learn to catch defects. And this is not that easy, especially at the beginning, defining what is an anomaly, what's a defect, and what is a good part. So I started to click with, okay, we can automate this task, we can generate data, and with this data, we might be able to help them solve their quality issues and reduce this level of scrap rates, which ultimately became our mission.
mm. What I found very interesting is last time we spoke was a lot of the a lot of the work that you guys are actually solving at the moment or are trying to solve is is a percentage of that is actually not necessary, right? So we were speaking about if you just use the book like a very standard quality book in your production line on the shop floor level. And so there's no magic involved. There's no AI involved, no machine learning. If you just use the book and do what it says to first semester of materials quality inspection or quality management or whatsoever, if you would apply those ideas, those theories, those proven working systems, you actually would decrease the number of defects that you have already, right? So, but there's the first leg. So really having people in charge that actually doing their job. And I'm not trying to do finger pointing here. It's just
Yeah,
there's so
yeah,
many different
it's tough running
things.
in a factory.
Exactly. There's so many things, hardware is hard, and there's so many things you need to take care of. And not only the quality inspection, you do still need to make money, right? If you would and focus on, I need to get rid of all the defects that I'm having. So there's almost no possibility to make any money because there's only very few cases where you do need that kind of quality. But coming back to, you say, okay, this was one of the use cases where it made actually click because it's very obvious for anybody who would have been in that factory that night that it's not the best option to just take it out of the machine and throw it in the bin, take it out of the machine and throw it in the bin, right? So the use case is almost obvious. And so you said that afterwards you understood that there's definitely a need, there's definitely a business case for you because product market fit is what I see or what you can see is a lot of startups are actually struggling with, right? To
Sure.
not coming and looking for a problem to your solution versus you're looking for problems that you might have a solution for. And yeah,
Yeah.
but getting
And
back to you.
even after building a solution for that problem, it's not entirely sure that we had a clear product market fit, because there are several ways to approach this product. And here we decided actually to have a very premium approach. We kind of chose the most complex inspection that you could find in the manufacturing, in manufacturing, which was inspecting painted, glossy painted parts.
Hmm.
And not that many people knew how to do that properly, especially not at the cadence that the automotive requires. We deployed a solution with about 10 camera inspecting at 20 FPS. So it was a lot of data to handle. We needed to compute deep neural networks and have all this stream of images going through the neural networks. We needed to annotate a lot of data. So we chose to have a very premium approach to our initial deployments and the way we design our product and have a very flexible product. And we did that for about 6 years. And 2 years ago, we scrapped everything and rebuilt a different approach, which now is growing quite well. But and there was COVID in the middle. So it's not a straightforward path. And product market fit, there's about 1,000 definition, and we have hot debate about product market fit within Scortex. Because I think there is the maybe clearer one when you're a SaaS platform and you start having users activation or as like AOR growth, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're in the manufacturing cycle, it's not necessarily as clear as purely a software play online and where user has a lot more autonomy.
Hmm. So when you had this incident in that factory, and then you said up front, you said that you were bold enough, and you do need to be bold, right? Be bold enough to think that you can actually assemble a team, that you actually be able to come up with a product that is good enough, so people are willing paying for it, and then having the guts to go into the fight with the big customer. Automotive is very hard. Like the requirements are very, very tough to get. I mean, you do need to apply to become a supplier, right?
Yeah,
And so there's a list of things you need to fill out. They want to know anything and everything, and being on shop floor, then you so there's the theory, there's the product, and then you are in reality at the shop floor, and then you're
mm,
working with people. There's always in AI and robotics, there's always the fear of being replaced, right? So
yeah.
and we are already so deep into business discussion. We're coming back to how you think is assembling first, I think, because otherwise I'm getting lost here too much. So you said
As
you
you.
had this incident. Yeah, alles gut. You said you had this incident, and then afterwards, what happened next? So what happened?
So basically, we were at a time where, fortunately, a lot of corporates were looking to work with startups. It was kind of this trend of starting to build innovation division and having to KPIs of how many startups are you working with. So
Hmm.
signing the initial contract was quite easily, and we started having this proof of concept
Hmm.
deploy in a factory. Since the impact could be quite huge, we were fortunate to have quite high visibility. So we are able to have such traction with this customer and another one that we raise our seed round of 1.8 million that allows us to fuel kind of the initial hire for the team that needs to build this product and start working on this pilot. And we have several phases. First, in our lab, where we have a few of the top management of this billion in revenue auto supplier who come at the office to start seeing very bad demo, but that are convincing enough to go to the next
Hmm.
step. And then we get into the factory, which was at that time, that was really like the one North Star that we had was we want to get into a factory and deploy our first inspection station. And we iterated a lot and were able to validate the first proof of concept. But then we got into something that might resonate with you, which is we were working mostly with the local team, and our main discussions also was with the innovation manager. and then transitioning from a successful pilot to industrial scale, especially when you're about a year-old startup, is hard. And at that time, it took me a while to realize that they had absolutely no intention to go to production with us, especially the way we were operating, because their strategy and the head of innovation wrote that in a article was we work with startup and then we if it works we find mature partners to reproduce what they do. And so this is basically what they did.
Mm.
And they didn't really successfully reproduce what we were doing, or they tried for many years and probably poured millions in trying to redo what we did, which is, I think, a shame because we could have worked together and they could have invested in the company probably. So I would do things a little differently. I think in foresight, they probably realized that they made a mistake in terms of the innovation approach, but I also would have had a different approach working with large enterprise customer at this stage, and try to be more, um, have a partnership approach more than purely customer approach. And
Just
then they,
sorry, just one question because this is very interesting here. A lot of startups are struggling with this phase, right?
yeah,
So especially automotive or big companies in general, over years, the way they treated supplier and partners, not all of them, but you can find this as a repetitive motto or scheme, is there is such a huge power balance, right? So you are the small supplier, I am the big company, and I'm holding the carrot in front of you. So you do anything and everything I want because you so desperately want me as a customer because you know there's so much potential, right? And there's so many resources that I have here, or potential use cases and lines and so forth, so on and so forth. But if when you just said that you would like to do today, you would do a different approach. Um, what would that be? How would you act differently?
well, I think there is one thing important is that once you start, um, get taking money from VCs, especially if they're not really into the industry 4.0 or into the industrial play, they'll push you for specific things such as growing your recurring revenue, because this is what the type of revenue everybody likes. And we had really great investors, but they had, of course, they were more used to yeah, license and subscription. So they were pushing, of course, for us to get recurring revenue. And when we were thinking about our next round, we wanted to hit a specific AR target. So that was a strong force. But on the other side, we that means also that we really view this one manufacturer as purely a customer and didn't really think of, okay, they're also taking some risk. If they start working with us, if we start deploying into several factories, which were what they asked, like, can you actually deploy in 80 other factories? And we were 1 year old, and of course we couldn't do that. But we probably could have gone into the venue, okay, maybe I'm a bit more willing to let some of a bit of my product, and maybe I'll not, this first project will not be as profitable as possible, or either they'll invest, either we do some co-developments, either there is some sort of partnership in any form, that could have taken place where we start deploying at global scale because we had an innovation skill, we had the technology, we had the nucleus of a really great team. That was what they needed to deploy at scale. And they were not able to reproduce that. But on the other side, we were not able to then successfully take that to scale. So I think, yeah, especially very early stage, find really thinking in partnership instead of purely the customer supplier relationship. Because here, they were if they had said yes, let's go deploy in many sites, they were taking too much risks, and I understand that. So we need to reassure them, and we need to make sure that they were able to actually minimize those risks and invest confidently in us. And so I would, if you purely enterprise play in such large industry, I think you need also a carrot for them to be willing to move forward. And usually the carrot is there's little risks for you, and we are going to deliver our value.
As I'm working in deployment, so there is one thing that you were just mentioning is very important, and I think this is part of all sales processes. Is is there enough money I can make with it, and can you reduce the risk so I'm willing to take you on board, right? And the deployment part is very important because the majority of automotive, they don't do things on their own, right? They used to, but they don't do it anymore. They want turnkey solutions.
Yeah,
They want somebody, an integrator, they are working together with for many, many years, and they know from other projects. So it's very hard to get in that. They do need to, due to due diligence and different kind of security and insurance reasons, you do need to have more than one supplier. So you can say, okay, I'm taking the best out of 4, 5, 6, 10. And so you're really showing that you are making an effort and finding the best solution. And so this is, as people who are familiar with this manufacturing industry, they know this is very basic daily work. But yeah, you do need to have an idea what you would like to achieve. Then you're talking to a few integrators, and then the integrator need to prepare. If you have, for example, now with Scortex, the integrator needs to find entire working solution where Scortex most likely will be just a part of it. And this entire solution has a price tag. This entire solution has a service contract. This entire solution has a support contract, right? And then everything is a package. And this package on different kind of levels with different kind of requirements is competing against other projects with other competitors, with other integrators, right? So it's
yeah,
very hard to get into that game. So every startup that is doing a very good job in selling themselves to integrator is doing a much better job in finding reducing that risk you were speaking about, right? So
yeah.
interesting.
I think yeah, selling, and this is a, I mean, we iterated a lot, and we're still iterating, and I'm not sure we really fully cracked the, okay, should we go through integrator? How do we work with integrator? But um, I right now we do go directly to the end customer and the end user, and we find that extremely valuable
Mm,
because we are looking to come with the not only the automation play, but also okay, longer term partnership into we help you improve your quality. And then once we've hooked that, and once we are able to be seen as this partner and have making sure that we are at least in some sort of level of selection, we can bring on board one of our integrating partners or work with their preferred partner. But we see that they're actually most of the time right now they like that when we come with a few of our integrating partner that we select and that we are used to work with.
yeah,
But
but this is
it's a difficult play. But we saw that we probably you might know Cognex, which is one of the global leader in machine vision, and they initially went direct to customers in the very beginning of the company, and then they move into building a massive network of integrating partners. And they were really strong at building this very mature ecosystem and lock those integrator into their ecosystem by training them into their ecosystem and building their products for those integrators. So the integrators are basically the only one knowing exactly what to do with this product. And what we saw is that I've seen too many of those cameras not being used in factories, not because the product is not good, but because the relationship between the end customer, the integrator, and the product itself is broken. And
mm,
we felt like that we kind of had to reshuffle this value chain because the integrator was a link between the end value and the user that was sometimes broken and destroying a lot of value. So we saw that there was an opportunity, okay, into rethinking first a product approach. We think that the end user should be the one who is really able to change their impacting parameter to make the most out of our product. But
mhm.
also the way we develop our product and we distribute it should be directly to those users because we want to make sure that they get the right level of performance.
Especially when it comes to this kind of technologies, because workers or operators are very much used to, because this is this is their job, right? To work with machines. But when it
Yeah.
comes to these new technologies, um, and you said that you were seeking this kind of communication with or iterations with customer very early on. But what I see very often is that this chain is actually broken, right? So product development and especially machine learning engineers so far detached from the actually customer, right?
Yeah.
And so UI UX is a big topic, right? Machines need to give you answers, so the operator not necessarily need to call someone. Because as you said, what happens if you have 7 days a week, 3 shifts? Then at Saturday evening, there's no one available, right? So if they want quick and fast solutions, so keeping that in mind when you're developing a product is always very valuable.
Mm.
If you would like to have because disruption comes from adoption, right? If people
Yeah.
don't use your product, it can be so good, right? Windows had so many products before Apple had them, but they were so badly designed or so badly or so hard to use that people were just not using them. And
Yeah.
I think keeping that in mind is very valuable.
And especially, it's all the more true when you have a product that learns from its users. Our system's
Mm,
input is by the user. So we want to make sure that the link between the one who has the knowledge of what needs to be detected and the system is as short as possible, and that the interface between them is as easy as possible to use with little training. And usually, so it's an operator, it's a technician, or it's a quality manager that we want in front of our product, and that is going to be teaching the system. Therefore, the link between performance and user experience is very, very close and very tight. And we've tried to create a mature product organization with people, with product managers and with UX UI designer within Scortex to make sure that and they are going to factories every week and interviewing users to make sure that we understand and do qualitative interviews and also quantitative monitoring of all the system to make sure that we understand how they use it and that we are able to yeah, provide the best experience possible, because the best experience is not only to be a Apple-like company, but it's required to get to the right level of performance.
mm. So we were speaking so much about the actually business cases and the actually work with the customer. So we lost a little bit track of Emmerich. So what I mean, because you said you founded Scortex 9 years ago, and you're when you become founder and CEO, very often, especially if you're a tech founder and you are started with a tech, somehow you get detached from what you actually like and what you're actually good at, because now you are CEO. Now you are the one who is making deals. Now you are the one who needs to go to conferences, who needs to be in front of the camera, who needs to shake some hands. So maybe you can take us on that journey, what happened in the last 10 years from the founding of Scortex until today, because you
Wow.
started with the tech, right?
Yeah. And I was fortunate I'm not really an expert. I'm a generalist in tech. So I think I've mostly used my technical background to be able to find great tech talent and assemble a good team.
Mm,
And I think that's the one thing that I'm most proud of with this Cortex adventure is the people that joined the adventure and contributed to the product and the organization itself. Yeah, I think the mission and the team were the really what was successful about this company. And then seeing, of course, the impact we are starting to have, and I hope it still grows a lot more at our customers. But it's really been mostly about the people that I work with. I know it's a bit cliche, but growing, especially as I was just out of my master's when I started the company, I didn't know much, and it was my kind of my first real job. So I had to learn a lot along the way and made a lot of mistakes. But the one thing I think that we were quite successful was finding the right people to come and contribute, which has been incredibly important. So the first few years was really about taking care of our first customers, building the product, and then We had a first couple of successful customer using our product in production. And then one thing that was pivotal in the history of the company was COVID. Basically, I was looking to raise a Series A in February 2020. As you can imagine, that when all the factories closed, our supply chain died from China, and all our customers called us saying, okay, everything is shutting down. Our sales pipeline disappeared. All of our customer paused the projects, and we had a limited runway, and no investors would back us with absolutely no visibility on what's next. So after that, there was about 2.5 years of pretty tough time, and basically putting my hat of wartime CEO, looking to finance the company, also making sure that we kept the team together, because I believe that it was the most important asset of the company. And we kept a few important customers running, and pushed the project through to also make sure that when we were discussing with investors, we could show the potential that we had. And I could go on for a long time about what happened in those 2.5 years, because that was very, very dense. But we were fortunate enough to actually kind of go away from the VC game and find the company that was interested in buying us, which is the Trigger Group. They're a enterprise, well, about 500 million in revenue, quality company, but mostly service, operating globally in kind of the similar market as us. And I initially had a discussion with their own investors, and then the CEO, and there was a lot of interest from them in how can we leverage data in the quality industry. And from that, actually, they bought us about 2 years ago, and we were able to, yeah, basically stand on the shoulder of a giant that has presence in 25 countries, and leverage their own customer network and also their deployment network. And we also keep operating as a standalone company, with mostly working with SMEs across Europe right now. So it's been quite a intense journey, and also before getting bought, we kept our R&D department running, and they were quite productive, and we had a kind of a technological breakthrough that allowed us to and pushed us, because of the financing tension, to radically change our product approach. So in December 2021, we fired all of our customers, most of them, and we redeveloped a new product in 2 months, and started the Spark journey, which is our current product, where basically we divided the price by 10. We reduced the deployment cycle from a few months to a few days, and we're able to solve mostly a lot of similar use case. And that was thanks to great work from the team that made us possible to deliver a hardware plus software product within 2 months, and do an entire new go-to-market, and basically rebuild the company. I'm pretty glad they did that, because now the Spark family product is growing, and customer like it. So it seems to have been the right move.
So I was in the beginning of the episode, I was hinting that the reason why we are here, not the only reason why, but I said in our first meeting that you might or might not know that I was working together with Scortex, right? So I was working in corporate innovation. As you said, there was a time where it seemed sexy that every single corporate had their own innovation unit. And so I was working for one of those innovation units, and one of the companies they were working together with was Scortex. So I was the project manager who was doing the POC we were talking about, right? So, and I even visited the office. You have this office in Paris, and the last time we spoke, you even showed me that you still have this office, right? So
Yeah.
we haven't met back then, but it was very interesting. And as you said, it was a big customer, has a few lines. They do back then they had people inspecting different parts of the product, and you guys were offering a solution with cameras, and you needed to teach the system what is a defect. So I remember there were different categories of defects, and what about new defects that had not been seen before. So you needed to train the system, right? So these are good parts, these are bad parts. And I remember that you guys were building your own conveyor belt within your office. So this was very funny
Yeah.
to see, because then we came to the end of the POC phase, because it was divided into different phases. And one of the phase was it needed to show that we can randomly, out of, I don't know, 85 pieces or 100 pieces, we can just take any part, put it on the conveyor belt, it goes through, and the algorithm is able to detect the defects. And I remember the upfront work, because people that are very familiar with the product and people that are very familiar with the solution were having discussions, right? So it seems random, but we have experts that were doing just this kind of job for many, many years, right? So you have a product that has, as an amateur, it's just a defect, right? But no, it's not a defect. So is it the color? Is it the paint? Is it the metal? Is it the surface? Is it underlow the surface? Is it a scratch? Is it a dent? Is it a bummer? So there's you can't think of anything, right? So
Yeah.
it was very funny to go through all that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we realize is that there's the technological side that we had to solve, and then there is the actual quality side, which is like the real world of our customer. And we had to develop a lot of methodology to be able to discuss and challenge the way our customer built their quality specification, what they want to detect, what is their actual level of performance, what is their target, and help them realize that they're not necessarily where they think they are, and do where they want to go. Does it really make sense in terms of industrial efficiency? Because sometimes we see that they have target that will double their scrap rates, and this is really not what they want to do. But they don't
Mm.
really want to say upfront that we might be okay not detecting this type of defect. So a lot of discussions where we basically also had to develop a deployment methodology focused on kind of working on as consultant on digital transformation, which was super interesting. And as you mentioned early on, taking basically what is the quality handbook, what are the good practice that the industry wrote down but are not using, and that we actually need to go back, read, and share with our customers so they realize that where they really are, and what's the real target. Because yeah, there are a lot of specification. We're like, do we really need to detect that? Is it going to make the world a better place? So that was really important. And funny story. So the part that we were supposed to inspect was large metallic panels, and we had to store them in our office. And after the end of the pilot, we were like, what are we going to do with this? We found an artist who actually took them. And I don't know if he made something out of it, but maybe someday there'll be a contemporary art piece made out of those metallic parts in a museum,
Mm.
which would be funny.
That would be really funny, especially if you think about how random. Because when we're thinking about deep tech, and so I'm working in robotics, right? And so this is AI involved. People are thinking about very futuristic. You see those cars and those flying objects when you think about sci-fi movies, and robots, humanoid robots. But in the very end, this what the challenge is to apply those things on the daily objects, right? Because you can only have one car or maybe two cars, but who owns a plane? Who owns a humanoid? At least today, this is not the case, right?
Yeah,
But daily objects like a television, like
yeah,
a washing machine, like these things, these are within our homes, right? And
yeah,
finding ways to apply this kind of technology that is so edge, right? So cutting edge to those daily objects in those industries is really challenging, and for me very exciting, because
yeah.
sometimes you have people that are very open to this, but sometimes people feel offended, right? And sometimes there's
Mhm.
a reason. This, I think, is cultural wise. Why should I have employees that are afraid in doing a better work, right? because you said actually you think you do 100% catching the defects, and I could prove with a very simple basic table that you might hit 88% or maybe 90%. So I'm trying to tell you that I can do 95, 97%, but you telling me that you do 100% is actually not right, right? So this kind of discussions is very hard to have if you have a customer that would like to bring you on board, but on the other side doesn't want to point out that they are doing a bad job. And I think
Yeah.
this is very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's when you realize that besides technology, there is the psychology of the workplace is going to be important. Power dynamics between a production team and a quality team is going to be super important. Even the politics of who we're working with, the project manager, what is his incentive? Does he really want to deploy, or is he just looking for his promotion? And if when he's gone, this is something that is going to be scrapped. So yeah, making sure that you understand the incentive of the organization and your customer, the people you're working with, is usually critical, and sometimes even more important than purely the tech, because if people are involved, they really want to make it happen. And we're fortunate to have really some customers that are really motivated, interested, and curious, and we find solutions for them and with them. But it's yeah, the psychology within the workplace is going to be extremely important for successful implementation of technology.
I think this is definitely one of the underrated topics when you are in the startup game. So, okay, I do need a good product, obviously, and some tech founders are clever enough to understand they do need marketing and sales, right? But these are the things we just spoke about. These are so important. You need so, as you said, you do need to have a very good team that knows about those things, who know how to challenge those things, right? And yeah, having people that are able to find the thin line between educating and selling and very interesting. I remember the last
Mm.
time we spoke that when we're coming back to you as a person, yeah, where are you at the moment? So with you, not physically, but mentally. You said that Scortex now 9 years old. So
Yeah, but I'm actually transitioning out of Scortex. So I've started that process a few months ago, and I'm able to fortunately leave the leadership to someone who's been in the company for 6, 7 years. So he was my CTO until a couple of months ago, and now he's becoming the new CEO. The company is in good hand, and I'm very happy to about that. But yeah, as you mentioned, the entrepreneurial journey is very draining in terms of energy, and I kind of want to think in block of 10 years. And coming close to 10 years, I thought it was a good time for me to say bye to this incredible adventure and take a couple of months to rest. And if your next question is, what will I do next? I have no idea. I'm just right now starting to talk to as many people as possible, having discussions about what are the exciting things that they're working on, what are the big problems that we need to solve. And it's ranging from a lot of different topics. I've right now, since a few weeks, I'm interested in water and the potential wider crisis that we have, not only in tropical countries or in middle of Africa, but also in Europe. And what are we doing to tackle that? Mobility is something I'm quite obsessed with. And there's so many changes that happened. The automotive industry is being completely reconfigured. Um, Energy is still an important topic. So there are a lot of, I mean, we have a lot of challenges as a society. We have a lot of challenges to make our planet livable in the long run. So those are the things I'm interested in, and I just want to dive deeper in topics and meet interesting people and see where this take me. Whether I'll start a new venture or join an interesting project, or I don't know. We'll see.
or starting painting, right? Because those metal
Stand painting.
parts doesn't paint themselves.
Exactly. Maybe
Um,
I'll become an artist and AI will just do the rest.
I found it very interesting talking to you. And the last time we spoke, I thought, okay, this is definitely someone I will speak a few times. So
Well, thank you.
please be so kind and give me the opportunity to come back to you in a year or two and see
Please.
what happened with your journey. I really like the idea that you think, okay, what are the challenges, right? So this should be always the starting point, not what like this is a solution where I can apply it. Where are the challenges, and I might be able to deliver a solution to that. And I really like the approach that you are thinking not about commercial challenges versus human challenges. So we are all here, and I do love the meme. I don't know if you know this meme. It's there's a few dinosaurs, and then there's a comet coming, and then the dinosaurs looks around and says, "But what about the economy?" Right? So I speak with few people as in my so friends and family, and we have different views about the importance of things. And for me, technology should always be about people, and technology should always be there for the people, right? So
Yeah,
even if I'm interested in robotics and I'm interested in humanoids, why, right? Not because invading countries and fighting wars versus we have older and older people. We do need someone who takes care of them. We have hard work where it shouldn't be a human. And I'm not talking about very repetitive and boring stuff, right? Like the inspection. This is definitely something that needs to be automated, but like where a human being is at risk, right? And education is a big topic, right? So where can we have technology that can make things easier for all of us? And I'm very curious to see what comes out of your mind, what comes out of your entrepreneurial mindset. And yeah, I was very happy and fortunate that you said yes. I do have a
well,
few
thank you
things
so
in
much.
mind what you can do, because everyone
Please share.
everyone who is listening to that podcast, to the very end might will find out that I'm will leave micropsy, and I will have a new challenge waiting up for me as well. So let's see how or if our paths will cross in the future. And
That'd be nice.
uh,
Uh,
I think the last thing I wanted to mention was there's there's Paris and Berlin, and I don't know why, but I have a very close. My wife always says she's a French at heart, and I'm not why. I don't know why, but I have the feeling that the French people are very close to me, and so I would be very happy to see you either in Berlin or at some other place whenever we can make it happen.
that would be super nice. I'm in Berlin quite often. I lived in Berlin and I have a few very good friends in Berlin, so I'm there every couple of months. So it would be really nice to see you.
Hmm. Thanks for taking the time, and yeah, talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye bye.